Next, I will teach recognizing my nature in Vajrayana. In regard to the actual practice of Dzogchen, the pith instructions on the actual practice of Dzogchen. Now let me speak with you about the pith instructions on the actual practice of Dzogchen. Generally speaking, the teachings can be categorized into Gyu, Lung, and Men Gak. But today I will not teach the extensive explanations of Gyu and Lung. Your level of practice should have reached a relatively high level. It was said that the practitioners there were doing year-round retreats and practice, cultivating relatively high realizations. At that time they reported to His Holiness that they also had experiential practice with the pith instructions, so I will, according to the way of Upadesha, give you a brief explanation. There are two paths of training in the section of Upadesha. One is the ground emphasizing original purity, the path of cutting through, and the fruition of the dissolution of all substance into particles. This is one method. This means the method of original purity, the ground, path, and fruition of original purity. The other emphasizes spontaneous presence as the ground, the path of directly crossing over, and the fruition of the achievement of the rainbow body. This is the ground, path, and fruition of spontaneous presence. But this method was not taught by His Holiness at that place. He said, we will teach it in the next life. Actually, there are many special meanings and special significance in this. The entire Dzogchen has two sets of ground, path, and fruition. One is the ground, path, and fruition of original purity. The other is the ground, path, and fruition of spontaneous presence. However, the ground, path, and fruition of original purity, His Holiness is... It's raining, right? Huh? What is it? Huh? The fan is on. These are two Upadeshas, and actually what His Holiness taught today is quite profound. Of course, just reading it is fine, but if you want to practice it, as I mentioned in the preface, if you truly want to practice the content within, you need to receive the empowerment of this teaching. A Journey to the West is originally a very profound Vajrayana text, but His Holiness transmitted it publicly, just like Liberation Upon Hearing, in a relatively open manner. So this time we also didn't require, when requesting the teaching, we didn't require that one must receive a particular empowerment. Because at places like Dorje Parkang, many texts can be freely requested, so this time we have a special permission. But what is taught here seems to be the most profound pith instructions of Dzogchen, and aside from this there's nothing more to teach. So at that time the Rinpoches requested His Holiness to give them the pointing out instruction. Then His Holiness said regarding these two, ground, path, and fruition, the former is the path of Trekchö that can lead idle ones to liberation without requiring diligent effort, the original purity method. The latter is the method where the diligent, relying on effort, attain liberation, these two. As we just mentioned, the former has already been taught, and the latter His Holiness left for next life to teach. The first method has four aspects: view, meditation, conduct, and result. First, for the view, it mainly ascertains that all phenomena of appearance, existence, universe, and beings are fundamentally the illusory manifestation of the mind. The root of all samsara and nirvana is this very mind, and the essence of this mind is originally beyond birth, abiding and cessation, having the nature of emptiness like open space. This is the view. Here he gives them such a pointing out instruction of the view. The root of samsara and nirvana is mind. The essence of mind, just like in entering the middle way and finding comfort and ease in the nature of mind, is taught like space, ungraspable and beyond attainment, this view. This is the pointing out instruction of the view from the aspect of emptiness. There are two methods to recognize this view. One is the guidance through the door of Shamatha, and one is the guidance through the door of Vipashyana, these two. Guidance through the door of Shamatha means approaching the view through meditation. This mainly follows the teachings of the Kagyu lineage. One's mind focuses single-pointedly and abides, then progressively practices the 4 yogas of Mahamudra and applies the pith instructions of stillness, movement, and clear awareness to recognize one's own mind. This is the direct pointing out instruction of Mahamudra, mainly the explanatory method of the Kagyu tradition. When His Holiness was teaching, it was very natural, as if he had it memorized, but later when it was written down, it was extremely rare. Including many of our Khenpos who have studied for many years, when they later looked at this text, found it extraordinarily rare. It's all like words flowing naturally, not intentionally trying to speak this way, but just spontaneously, flowing out like a terma teaching. From the sequence, logic, and categorization he taught, including the terminology he used, we were amazed. You can also see this. Just now, wasn't this about approaching the view through meditation? There's also approaching meditation through the view, these two. Then, the general teachings of the Kagyu tradition are the 6 yogas of Naropa on the path of skillful means and Mahamudra on the path of liberation. Its specific teachings are mainly those mentioned by Karma Chakme Rinpoche in his mountain retreat instructions, unique and profound pith instructions clearly explained. Below we will also explain a little which you need to understand from this. This is the guidance received through the door of Shamatha just mentioned. This type is mainly meditation focused. Generally, in Kagyu Mahamudra, one begins with abiding as the main practice. Then, guidance through the door of Vipashyana is approaching meditation through the view. In Dzogchen, one first recognizes the view, then practices accordingly. According to the general guidance in the Nyingma tradition, practitioners are enabled to realize that the mind is unborn, non-abiding, and unceasing. Just as taught in the Dzogchen text on Manjushri, then they are guided to actually practice this view by applying the skillful methods of settling the mind. This is how most Nyingma masters nowadays give teachings, also called guidance through the door of Vipashyana, transmitted in this way. These are the 2 schools. Today is because this place, His Holiness also said it's unclear. Sometimes they say it's Kagyu, sometimes they say it's Nyingma. So anyway, he just taught them both teachings together. Actually, sometimes such circumstances are quite good. So we who come after can understand what Mahamudra is like and what Dzogchen is like. The majority of people in the Nyingma and Kagyu traditions combine these 2 methods for actual practice and transmission. Actually, to directly point out the ultimate view of these 2 methods, one must understand that one's mind is originally empty in nature. This is very important. Whether it's Mahamudra or Dzogchen, recognizing that the nature of mind is emptiness is very important. This is what the Sutrayana teaching refers to as the Great Mother Prajnaparamita. As we explained before, the practice of the letter A, the single syllable Prajnaparamita, what is taught here refers to the Great Middle Way, the Great Seal, and the Great Perfection, these 3 greats. All require knowing that one's mind is unborn emptiness. Actually, Chan Buddhism is also like this. How wonderful! Self-nature is originally pure. How wonderful! Self-nature is originally unborn and unceasing. Luminosity is inherent. These also emphasize emptiness, and upon this one recognizes luminosity. Regarding this principle, many scholars in the Nyingma tradition have established this through analysis, but here I want to discuss the Karmapa Rangjung Dorje of the Kagyu tradition. This is the 3rd Karmapa, who will also be mentioned below. He appeared around the year 1000 CE. Karmapa Rangjung Dorje, in one of his prayers, said, "The absence of mental engagement is Mahamudra. The freedom from extremes is the Great Middle Way. Since here all is included, this too is the great perfection. May I acquire the confidence of knowing one and realizing all. This means that which is free from all attachment is Mahamudra, that which is free from all extremes is the Great Middle Way, and that which includes the essential points of the teachings of all 9 yanas is the Great Perfection." Everyone should memorize this scriptural citation. Otherwise, if you study Tibetan Buddhism and study, yet cannot even distinguish the 3 greats, it would be quite regrettable. So this scriptural citation from Karmapa Rangjung Dorje, I memorized it in my first year here, right in 1985. When I first encountered several scriptural citations that were easy to remember, I immediately wrote them down and memorized them. Back then, memorizing was relatively easy. Now, memorizing a scriptural citation sometimes takes more effort. He aspired, relying on these three, Mahamudra, the Great Perfection and the Great Middle Way, to recognize the true nature of his own mind. This is from what seems to be his Mahamudra aspiration prayer. In Rangjung Dorje's Mahamudra aspiration prayer, it is taught this way. His Holiness cites such scriptural citations. This is about the view. Now, His Holiness is again teaching the Great Perfection, and all using scriptural citations from the Kagyu tradition, which is the Great Perfection. Then below, he teaches on meditation. Meditation refers to not engaging in any other conceptual grasping and abiding in this state of realization with awareness without forgetting it. This is meditation. Regarding this principle, many scholars and great accomplished masters in the Nyingma tradition have already established this through analysis, but here I will mainly present Karma Chakme Rinpoche's view, the author of our aspiration prayer for Sukhavati. His view. What did Chakme Rinpoche say? Now turn inward and observe your own mind. You may recognize that mind exists nowhere and is the nature of emptiness. Abide in that state of emptiness and relax at ease. Other than this, there is no other practice called Mahamudra. This means when we focus on this mind of ours, and at the moment of observing the mind, we discover it is originally nothing other than emptiness. This is Mahamudra. There is no Mahamudra other than this. As you recognize it clearly and distinctly in the state of realization, you abide in it in a relaxed manner without forgetting it. This is meditation. So the meditation that Chakme Rinpoche taught is also Mahamudra meditation. Actually, this is also a very profound pointing out instruction. For many of us who want to recognize our own mind, each of these scriptural citations, due to time constraints, I won't explain them in detail. Actually, all of these are very important. Although Mahamudra encompasses and seals all phenomena that encompass both samsara and nirvana, Mahamudra is the teaching of originally abiding in emptiness. It can encompass and seal all phenomena. Just as when we teach emptiness, in this world you cannot find a single phenomenon that is not empty, the principle of Mahamudra can encompass and seal all phenomena. Conversely, nothing can encompass and seal Mahamudra. No one can encompass and seal Mahamudra, but Mahamudra can encompass and seal all phenomena. Emptiness can encompass and seal everything, but nothing can encompass and seal emptiness. This is the meaning. So all phenomena of samsara and nirvana are none other than Mahamudra. That is the meditation. Next, His Holiness teaches on conduct. Third, for conduct, no matter what kind of thought arises, whether good thoughts or bad thoughts, you need to recognize its essence and nature, so that the level of practice keeps improving. Regarding conduct, although within the Nyingma Tantras and Upadesha instructions there are many teachings, I will still briefly summarize again Karma Chakme Rinpoche's teaching from his mountain retreat instructions. What did he teach? At that time he said, when a favorable circumstance in accordance with your wishes occurs, observe the nature of mind, and in this way actually the state of practice will improve a little bit. When I am praised by others today, when someone gives me a nice gift today, when I receive a mooncake during the Mid-Autumn Festival, when someone gives me a red envelope during the New Year, when someone says today, you did very well. At such times, if I observe my own mind at this moment, there will be a slight improvement, not a great improvement. When an unfavorable situation occurs, such as illness, death, or being defamed, and so on, negative circumstances, if you observe the nature of mind, then at this time your practice will greatly improve. But maybe for those whose practice is quite good, while for those whose practice is not good, when encountering obstacles or suffering, if you observe, you might become more disappointed, feel more unlucky, thinking, why am I like this? I have practiced so much Dharma, yet the Guru has no blessings, the Dharma has no blessings, nothing at all, etc. There may be such reactions. But generally speaking, just as taught in transforming suffering and happiness into enlightenment, conduct mainly depends on whether there is progress, whether you can transform it into enlightenment. This is very important. When favorable circumstances arise, if you observe the true face of mind, it's not a very high level of improvement, but if you encounter obstacles and you observe it well, it is very helpful for your practice. Indeed, for those whose practice is good, once they encounter various difficulties and various obstacles, ultimately it is very helpful for their practice. All in all, never forget to practice throughout all times, such as walking, abiding, sitting and lying down, so that you can stabilize realization in daily life. That is called conduct. Then, fourth, for the result, this can be posited by following Jetsun Milarepa's teaching. What did Venerable Milarepa say? His Holiness's citations are still quite impressive. View, meditation, conduct and result, each linked to the next, all of it. If we were to write an article, how much reference material would we need to consult? His Holiness just very easily, and it's being translated continuously. Especially simultaneous interpretation is better. With consecutive interpretation, you immediately break the previous train of thought. By the time new points are made here, the previous ones are forgotten, or the entire logic and framework from before. Probably you all study philosophy. People who study the 5 major treatises should be able to see this. If you were asked to give this teaching without any notes, to just casually give it, citing scriptural citations section by section like this, section by section, let's see if you can try it. If anyone says they can, raise your hand. We can stay up all night to listen to your teaching. Inside I suffer from the sickness of Dzogchen, and outside I suffer from the sickness of Mahamudra. Not only do I experience the pain of the 2 sicknesses, I will even die because of them. This means that inside the sickness of Dzogchen is very painful, and outside he suffers from the sickness of Mahamudra. Not only is he in pain, he might even die. If we understand literally, it might seem Milarepa was really very seriously ill, about to die. Should we call an ambulance or something? What he wanted to express is this: recognizing that one's mind is unborn. This is the realization of Dzogchen, speaking from the aspect of emptiness. Abiding in that state of realization without any movement is the practice of Mahamudra. The inner sickness just mentioned is Dzogchen, the outer sickness is Mahamudra. If you practice both, the joint practice of both Dzogchen and Mahamudra not only leads to the elimination of all negative thoughts that are temporary like sickness, completely purified, but also makes it easier to swiftly attain the ultimate state of Buddhahood that is expressed metaphorically as death. You can easily and quickly attain it. So that's what it means. So this is the kind of sickness Milarepa had. Also in other songs of Milarepa, inside he is nailed down with the nail of Dzogchen. Outside he is nailed down with the nail of Mahamudra, and from his mouth comes some kind of blood. In some other songs there are also such expressions. So that is the view, meditation, conduct and result of Trekchö. This has been explained. This way of teaching, the pith instructions for actual practice, is based on the view of the Nyingma tradition, but the scriptural citations used, whether for view, meditation, conduct or result, are all based on the teachings of the Kagyu tradition used by His Holiness. I recall that we were all quite nervous at that time, because below sometimes they said it was a Kagyu place. Among the disciples some were Nyingmapa and some were Kagyu. For Westerners, there's not much sectarian exclusion, but still, attachment to one's own school does exist to some extent. We didn't know how His Holiness would integrate them, but the way he taught was quite skillful. The reason for teaching in this way is also to accord with today's auspicious coincidence. From my own perspective, today I came from a Kagyu center to a Nyingma center. Kagyu, we were staying at Marpa House coming from there, and went to Solitary Eagle Farm, which they said was a Nyingma center, but actually they also practiced Kagyu teachings. So His Holiness said, why do I teach this way? Today I came from a Nyingma center to a Kagyu center. This is the reason I combined the Kagyu and Nyingma traditions together. Actually, in Milarepa's biography, it's also like this. In the past, in Shabka's biography, some great saints could weave anything together, and weave it very reasonably. From your side, you have been continuously studying and practicing the Kagyu teachings, and now you also have the chance to study the uncommon actual practice teachings of the Nyingma tradition, because at that time that Rinpoche insisted that His Holiness teach the Dzogchen, pointing out instruction. It seems a few years ago this too. He said he had kept it for 20 or 30 years, and he kept thinking about it repeatedly, and finally, in order to benefit those connected to him, what His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche taught at that time, he began to share with disciples with karmic connection. On their own website, they have their own website. He said he had already practiced and preserved it for so many years himself. Actually, from a certain perspective, Kongtrul Rinpoche has great faith in His Holiness, and in the secret teachings of Dzogchen, he is a person of great faith. The actual practice teachings of the Nyingma tradition, so I present my teaching by combining the Kagyu and Nyingma traditions together. The Nyingma and Kagyu lineages are so strongly connected to each other, completely different from the other lineages of attainment. This is also one reason I teach this way. What close connection do these two have? Below I will explain this. As I mentioned earlier, the peerless Gampopa also said he was the emanation of Orgyen Padmasambhava. Also the second Karmapa, the emanation of Dusum Khenpa. The second Karmapa, Dusum Khenpa, the emanation of Dusum Khenpa, Karmapa Pakshi. In Chinese we often say Karmapashi, but in Tibetan Pakshi is his name, while Karmapa is a title every Karmapa has. When he was the guru for the Mongol emperors, sometimes he would sing like this, saying, sometimes I am Padmasambhava and sometimes I am the Mahasiddha Saraha. Sometimes I am the emanation of Padmasambhava and sometimes I am the ancient Indian Mahasiddha Saraha. He himself sang this. So he himself admitted clearly that he was the emanation of Padmasambhava, connecting the Kagyu and Nyingma traditions. Speaking of the third Karmapa, Karmapa Rangjung Dorje, in the present time, if you want to study the Nyingtik Yabzi of the Nyingma tradition, you must rely upon Rangjung Dorje's words and teachings, because he was one of the gurus of omniscient Longchenpa, the guru of Venerable Longchenpa. There is also this connection. The Karmapa has a certain connection with the Nyingmapa. As for Karma Chakme Rinpoche, his guru was from the Paleol lineage, Mingyur Dorje, the revealer of the Namcho teachings, who was also Chakme Rinpoche's guru and also his disciple. They had a mutual teacher-disciple relationship. His disciple was Rigzin Kunzang Sherab, the first throne holder of Paleol Monastery. The first throne holder of Paleol Monastery, Kunzang Sherab, is also very famous, mainly a founder of the Paleol lineage. He himself was probably also, Chakme Rinpoche himself belongs to the Kagyu school and also belongs to the Nyingma school. So we can say Karma Chakme Rinpoche belongs to both the Nyingma and Kagyu schools. Looking at all these great lineage masters, it is clear to us that Nyingmapa and Kagyupa have been closely related throughout history. In Bhutan, actually, the Kagyu and Nyingma traditions, the king of Bhutan is also very receptive to both. This is why my teaching today was based on both traditions, combining the Kagyu and Nyingma. I think through this article many of us will know about Dzogchen and Mahamudra, or the similarities between the Kagyu and Nyingma traditions. Basically, everyone knows. I assume the qualifications that are necessary for your main practice have been included in the view, meditation, conduct, and result of the Trekchö path. Is that correct? This concludes the first topic. Then the second one. Didn't I just mention the method of spontaneous presence? As for the second path of Tögal, I will make the prayer we will meet again in this life. But if not, may we reunite in the pure land of Sukhavati. Indeed, His Holiness later did not return, and they did not meet. May we reunite in the pure land, and at that time I will give you the extensive teaching on spontaneous presence. His Holiness at that time said this. In order to create an auspicious condition to make it happen, I will now conclude here. I will not teach this actual practice guidance. Today I conclude here.
Bandara Badna Sadardang Bandara Badna Sadardang Bandara Badna Sadardang